Hey there, I hope you're doing well. My name is Arya and today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy Reddit stories, consider liking, subscribing, and maybe hitting that notification bell too. Let's get started with today's first story. Much love, everyone. Today's first story comes from my wife dumped me for her affair partner sad revenge. Before the accident, my life was straightforward. I was like any other high school grad excited for the future, but unsure of where I was headed. I spent my days with friends dreaming of success and adventure, though my goals were vague. My family was supportive, but sometimes distant. That uncertainty weighed on me, but it was nothing compared to what came next. One day I was a young man fresh out of school. The next everything changed. I don't remember much about the accident, but it left me in a coma for 2 years. When I woke up, I was covered in scars, confused, and had no memory of my life before my family was gone and I felt lost. Suddenly I heard Zoe's voice cut through the chaos of my dream. Roger, wake up, sweetheart, you're dreaming again. I had been dreaming of bees, just like always. After nearly 30 years together, Zoe still laughed. When I told her it was the killer, be a nod to an old Saturday Night Live skit. I took a shower to shake off the lingering effects. These dreams had haunted me since the accident at 18, though I don't recall the accident. I know I was in a coma for 2 years. When I finally woke, I decided to go to college, scarred but healed. I was ready to move forward, even though my family was nowhere to be found. The accident must have been serious. My body showed signs of extensive surgery. I wondered if I had enjoyed life before it happened, because I certainly paid a high price afterward. I became cautious, preferring a quiet, simple life. I found myself drawn to accounting, a career I'd never imagined in high school. The doctors said it wasn't unusual to forget details. I just wanted a peaceful life, a loving family, a house with a pool and a quiet routine. The bees, though, always returned in my dreams. Got another FCE water? I asked in my dream. The bees were relentless and every sting hurt more than the last. Then Zoe's voice brought me back to reality again. Roger, wake up, it's just a dream. They're getting worse, I admitted, though my doctor insisted it was just an aversion to bees. Zoe and I married when I was 20 and she was 25 in a small church near my college. It was a quiet affair. Neither of us had much family. We settled down living among her friends and I continued school by 1975. I had a degree in accounting and computer science, though it seemed to happen fast. I didn't question. It just started my career as an accountant, a simple job that suited my newfound preference for a quiet life. I often worked alone counting inventory. If 2 of us counted together, we could agree on a number, even if it was wrong. But when counting separately, the audit would be accurate. It was boring, but I liked it. No one bothered me and I could work at my own pace. Bees again, I muttered, where are they coming from? I waved my hand and felt them strike, even drawing blood. Beekeeper, do something about these things. Whoop, these are killer. Bees put something on the stings. What's that noise, a bird? No, it's too big, a pterodactyl. Then it hit me, damn, stung again. What kind of bird is this? Zoe's voice pulled me out of the dream. Roger, wake up, you're having a bad dream, go, take a shower. The dreams were intense. My scars hurt and the people in the dreams were like ghosts, faceless shapes. 2 years after John was born. We had Paula, my little princess. I love John, but Paula had me wrapped around her finger. Just like her mom. I adored my kids and Zoe. I loved watching them sleep, helping them walk, ride a bike and play catch. Those moments were my happiest. We had neighborhood barbecues and though everyone knew each other well, I was the newcomer. Maybe it was because I married Zoe quickly after she got pregnant. Our relationship was decent, but after marriage, our Z life faded. Zoe wasn't interested, so it became infrequent. But I had my kids and a calm life which kept me content. I overheard the women talking once. Zoe, how do you put up with boring? Rogers, perfect. Zoe replied, He doesn't drink, smoke, or gamble. He loves me and the kids and is a great provider. Zoe soon announced she was pregnant with Billy, and we celebrated with friends. Our kids grew up together with the neighborhood kids, and we were part of a tight-knit group. People teased me about being boring, but I didn't mind. I loved running, even though no one else joined me. My job auditing warehouses kept me in shape. Counting all those items required physical effort at home. I used weights in the basement and kept up with the kids' activities. Music, lessons, sports, and more. Zoe stayed busy as a full-time mom. Managing it all ___ is that a pterodactyl? I muttered. These damn bees are everywhere. Beekeeper, get rid of them. People are getting stung and it's dangerous. Give them the beast sting serum, but don't touch me, I'll swat you. Dragonflies, where did they come from? At least they eat the bees. Roger, wake up, honey, go take a shower. Zoe said I did as she asked, but my scars ached and I had a headache. I hate bees, I told her. I keep dreaming about prehistoric birds, snakes, and hogs. The dreams are getting crazier. Why can't I remember the accident? I asked the doctor while Zoe sat with me. And these weird dreams, your memory loss could be from post-traumatic stress, the doctor said. As for the dreams, they might be linked to the accident, doctor. I don't know what kind of pterodactyl it was. I'm an accountant, not a paleontologist. The questions annoyed me. The dreams got worse, but life remained steady and dull, which I liked. I went to work, counted beans, and came home. Sex with Zoe became less frequent, but that didn't bother me much, doctor. Now, I'm dreaming about dancing like in West Side Story. I told him it's not sexual, but I'm dancing with men holding hands, ballroom style. The bees are always there. In the background, I added, and sometimes there are snakes, hogs, and dragonflies, and we start skidding. The doctor didn't have answer airs. He asked Zoe if anything at home was unusual, but she said I was the same as always except for the dreams. That was the last time I saw him. Life went on with the usual Saturday barbecues and neighborhood events. Our group was close-knit, about 20 people plus kids. We attended PTA meetings saved for college and dealt with weddings. I worked extra shifts when we needed money, and I was proud to provide for my family. The house was paid off, we had retirement accounts, and I even managed new cars and vacations. Zoe friends would sometimes tease her. How do you deal with being married to someone so boring? I entertain myself. Zoe would reply, Roger's good to me, provides for us and loves me and the kids. I'm happy, and you should be so lucky. As time passed. If you are enthusiastic about this narrative, please inform us. If you found the video enjoyable, please press A. If you do not have the desired option, please press B. Your feedback serves as a great source of inspiration for me to collect more uplifting and profound stories. We approached our 30th anniversary. The others have been stung. Beekeeper, help them. Where are all these bees? Coming from someone, give me another fly swatter, I mumbled in another wild dream. It was just another bizarre night, but by now I was used to it. Hey Roger, still dancing with men while the bees sting you? Randolph joked, making everyone laugh. I was surprised that Zoe had mentioned my dreams about dancing with men to anyone, especially her friends. That was supposed to stay between us on the drive home. I pulled over to talk to her. Zoe, why did you tell people something so personal? You've betrayed my trust, I said. Zoe just laughed. Roger, these are our best friends. We see them every day, take vacations together, and share meals. Why are you being upset? You're the one dancing with other men, she said. That was the moment I realized others were more important to Zoe than I was. It made me suspicious, and I hated feeling that way. After a few months of paying closer attention, I found out the truth. One day I showed up at one of their gatherings uninvited. It was something I'd never done that in 30 years, although they often dropped by our house unannounced. I found Zoe, our grown children, and all 20 of our so-called friends, naked and with ZX. Yes, he found out, Robert said, as everyone laughed. Go in, Roger, and find out the truth about your boring life. Zoe introduced the men she had been with, pointing out that their middle names matched our children's first names. It confirmed what I already suspected. It turned out that many people, including our adult children, had been part of a secret group, but I was not aware of it. My children had long since stopped calling me Dad, and now I knew why. Why, Zoe? Why did you steal 30 years of my life? What did I ever do to deserve this? I asked. Zoe looked at me with exasperation. Roger, you're just boring. You have no passion, no backbone. We were all part of a pack since childhood to stay together, to have sex with each other. You were just the extra man to keep the group. Even we kept you in the dark because you liked it there. I couldn't risk you being the father of my kids. I needed better genes than yours. Why didn't you want a real marriage with me? I asked. I wanted more sex, more connection, but you always shut me down. Zoe replied coldly. If I gave you what you wanted, you'd figure out the truth. I couldn't take that chance. I picked you because I was already pregnant and you were easy to manipulate. Sleep with you once, say you were the father, and it was done. You never stood a chance of figuring it out. Was that all I was to you, just someone to give you money, while you slept with your old friends and dragged our kids into this mess? Was everything you said to me, all the baby and honey, a lie? I asked. Don't be ridiculous, Roger. I sort of liked you. Calling you baby and honey was just being nice, but after years of those stupid dreams about dancing with men, you disgusted me. You're a freak, worrying about dragonflies, prehistoric, birds and bees. Now you know, but it's too late. If you divorce me, I'll get half of everything in alimony for life, Zoe said, smiling. And your lovers, were they all in on this? I demanded. They're not just Z's buddies, Roger, they're my lovers. We've loved each other since childhood. Something you'll never understand. Zoe replied. Her friends chimed in, laughing. You were the perfect fool, Roger. While you worked, we were screwing your wife and your kids. None of us would have touched you. You weren't worth it. We kept you around for your money and used you to raise our kids. Everyone joined in showing their contempt for me. They had used my money and kept me in the dark for years now. With the truth out, they didn't bother hiding it anymore. Be a good boy and clean the house. I'll be back in a few days. Zoe said, as they all laughed. As I walked out, I turned to Zoe and said, you betrayed me for this. You gave your children to people who treat you like garbage. You're proud of that. Did you ever notice? Your friends' kids aren't part of this. Think about why I continued. Your lover eliminated himself rather than marry someone pregnant by John. Didn't that clue you? And I'm just glad I'm not part of your gene pool. My hidden camera had recorded everything. Come back anytime, Roger, John Sr. said, as I left. Bring some friends. Oh wait, you don't have any, he mocked, but I did have 6 county marshals waiting outside ready to serve everyone with court papers. They're all inside, I told the officers. The screams from 23 unclothed people as 6 marshals entered were deafening. I smiled as I walked away unhurried. The restraining orders would keep them away while everything settled. The divorce was ugly, but I handled it in the county seat. Not my hometown. I filed for an annulment based on fraud, and with the evidence from our talk, I hit Zoe's friends for millions. They admitted the whole Canern conspiracy, how they used me to pay for everything while they carried on their affairs with their confession. I secured the house, all our savings, retirement accounts, everything, since it was fraud. There was no community property Zoe and her friends owed me for raising their kids. The kids, who had long stopped calling me dad, hated me for what I did to their parents. I wasn't done as a bean counter. I knew exactly how to get what I was owed in the end. I got over $5 million from all involved. It didn't ruin them, but it put a serious debt in their finances. They even pulled their money to pay me off, especially after I started filing writs of attachment. I also had the birth certificates changed since they were based on fraud, and Zoe had to give up my last name. I didn't care what names the kids used. I lost contact with all of them and didn't want to live in the house, but I didn't want to sell it either. I wanted to destroy it. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I returned to the neighborhood with a crew to demolish the house. Zoe and the kids went crazy. The house was worth $600,000, but I jacked up the price to $11 million and all their Z-buddies bought it. Their ZX lives depended on owning that house because it connected to their properties. I made an extra $500,000 in just a few days of negotiating. Before leaving, I destroyed every trace of our life together, photos, cards, school projects. I left the house filthy with rotten food and utilities shut off. I even painted every wall, ceiling and window black. Zoe got the house and it became their party house. She became the group's housekeeper, or more accurately, their personal strumpet, though she never saw it that way. She believed her kids were special because they were part of the group, but it was because they were foolish enough to believe her lies. I quit my job and left everything behind, including my clothes. I drove all night, stopped at a cheap motel, and the next day bought new clothes at Walmart. I changed rental car and discarded everything that could remind me of those 30 wasted years. It was like stomping the dust from my feet, a clean break. 2 days later, I was in D.C. at the Pentagon. Well, actually, an annex filling out a job application. I gave them my day and address and a new cell number, having ditched the old one they had been using to track me during my investigation. I discovered they were forwarding my calls, so I used that to stay ahead of them. The DoD hired me the next week. The interview was odd, but they needed a CPA and I had the credentials. When asked if I'd use veteran preference, I explained my coma and not serving in Vietnam. A Navy officer even took my fingerprints electronically. "Welcome to the Department of Defense, Mr. Phil," they said with a smile. "Where would you like to start?" I surprised myself by saying I wanted to go to Iraq or Afghanistan for some excitement. I was tired of my dull life and needed a change. A few days later, I was fitted with body armor. I had to buy myself and sent to weapons training. Strange for a civilian auditor, but they insisted, saying, "We think you should." I wasn't Rambo, but I carried twin 45s and M16A4 and an M9 bayonet. My first assignment was Afghanistan. When I heard the __ of the helicopter's blades, it hit me, that was the sound from my dreams. It wasn't exactly the same, but close enough. I must have heard it before. Even if I didn't remember, I still had the dreams, but now there was no deceitful wife pretending to care. I visited various bases, aiding assets, and quickly learned that alliances could be bought. Short-term, the enemy of my enemy was a friend, but only for the right price. The dreams continued, but now the smoke people took shape, with faint faces appearing. I was an old man among young soldiers, some barely 18 already with children of their own to them. If you were 30, you were dad, 40 made you gramps, and over 50 you were just old man. These young soldiers moved with precision like a deadly ballet, following orders without hesitation. It reminded me of Tiberius, whose drills were like bloodless battles, while his battles were bloody. Drills, I admired their discipline, but wondered how they'd feel later in life, having been forced to do such violent things. The dreams persisted: dragonflies, snakes, hogs, bees, but their intensity faded. Faces appeared on the smoke figures. Young faces of people I didn't know. Meanwhile, I continued my work, counting everything from bullets and rockets to socks and water bottles. We had to plan ahead, ensuring we had what was needed for the future, always accounting for losses along the way. Planning was critical, as everything had to be stocked, shipped, and tracked. About 4 months and we were ambushed. Bullets flew sounding like bees, buzzing overhead. Despite the chaos, I remained calm. The soldiers moved with precision and I followed their lead, watching for flanking movements and calling for fire. Training kicked in and we moved as one. The firefight. The firefight ended quickly and the enemy retreated into the terrain. After that day, the dreams nearly stopped, replaced by the harsh reality of war. I moved to Iraq for the same job, counting supplies, reporting what was needed and what wasn't. The scale grew, with more items to track and more things to lose. I went on patrols, claiming I needed to assess assets, but really just wanting to escape the warehouse like a dancer. Moving to music, we moved to the rhythm of war. I stayed solitary, rarely spoke but constantly observed, took notes and filed reports. The DoD loves paperwork. Now, all computerized, I uploaded everything via satellite. There were distractions everywhere, even bees. Just a few stings here and there. I let my superiors know I had been there over 4 years. Originally part of a team, then leading one and eventually working solo, war became home. A distraction from the past 30 years, despite firefights and wounds, none serious, I survived. I continued auditing Supply Depot, counting everything needed for military operations. All branches, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, played their part in this deadly game. I didn't enjoy battle or taking lives, but the absence of dreams was a relief. I was well equipped and nobody bothered me, not even high-ranking officers. I simply did my job, learned the area, and helped where needed. I had no real friends, just pseudo-friends, fellow Americans. I would liquidate or die for the mission. Was simple: break things. Create widows, get home alive? Everything else was noise. When I entered a new depot, I knew I'd face the same routine. A sergeant major would give me grief and I'd have to put them in their place. The script was always the same: stay out of my way. Let me do my job, Sergeant. Major Claw was no different. This is my house, my rules, she said, getting in my face, nose to nose. It was a standoff. Just like always. Don't give me that, I replied. This is my jurisdiction. I monitor everything here. She barked back, telling me not to touch anything without her permission as she stormed off. I noted her sharp posture and appearance, pegging her as an American Indian. I left the area knowing I couldn't escalate the situation further. Instead, I joined a patrol needing to escape the depot and get back to the battlefield. Sergeant Major Claw, her real name Sergeant Major Jen. Claw was born with a strong grip, earning her the nickname Iron Claw from her grandfather, a full-blooded northern Blackfoot. She was raised by her grandparents. After her parents died, mysteriously in a car crash, her grandfather, a warrior with scars from World War II, Korea and Vietnam, taught her the old ways. Claw followed in his footsteps, becoming a warrior at 18, serving in Kosovo and Montenegro and rising through the ranks without compromise. She earned a master's in warehouse management and took pride in her American Indian heritage. She was determined not to let anyone, especially a civilian like Roger, get the best of her. Meanwhile, Roger returned to the depot one evening and found Claw sleeping in full uniform, ready for battle with her .45 by her side. Roger lied about securing the depot, knowing he was drawn to her, though their relationship remained tense. Claw, always on guard, was a force to be reckoned with. This depot, while not the largest, became Roger base. He constantly inspected, inventory, checked records and ensured supplies were managed properly. His interactions with Claw were confrontational, but no duel were allowed. If there were, he knew she'd win. Despite their friction, Roger respected her. Sergeant Major Claw was equally frustrated with Roger. To her, he was a civilian playing soldier, a potential liability. Despite her efforts to get him off patrols, Roger seemed untouchable. He even earned respect from the SEALs. Claw couldn't figure out why, but she kept trying. War, bees, firefights and strange dreams surrounded them both, making their battlefield rivalry even more intense. Sergeant Major Claw, I was raised by my grandparents after my parents' end of lives, and my life has always been the Army. I've searched for a warrior, like my grandmother found and my grandfather, but at 45 I've accepted I won't find him and children won't come. Grandfather, a warrior with scars from World War II, Korea and Vietnam, always said I'd have children, but now that seems impossible. Recently my dreams have been filled with Roger. I see him differently now. He's scarred not from a car accident, but from battles, the kind of scars only a warrior bears. One night I watched him shower, cleaning his hands as if trying to wash away invisible blood. He saw me watching, and though I felt fear, I realized he trusted me. It wasn't romantic love, it was something deeper. He was my warrior. Meanwhile, Roger Claw looked at me and I told her everything about my past, my dead marriage, my wife's infidelities, my 3 kids who weren't mine. I hadn't felt anything for years, but meeting Claw changed that. She smiled and said, "Then you're ready." There was love and playfulness in her eyes, something I never saw with my ex. She called me her gray-haired war stallion and invited me to make love to her battle, scars and age. Didn't matter to me, she was perfect, we kissed and I felt her passion, hoping she saw the same love in my eyes. I love you, I told her, and if you ever stop I'll scalp you for real, she replied. This was the connection I had longed for my entire life. Later Claw asked if she could tell her grandfather about my dreams, explaining he understood dreams better than anyone. It was the first time someone asked for permission to share my dreams rather than just doing it. I agreed, trusting her completely. Sergeant Major Claw. Yes, if my grandfather can help with the dreams, good. I don't have them as much anymore, but I'd like to know their meaning. I asked him, what do they mean and what about his scars? They didn't come from a car accident. Grandfather said his spirit is troubled, but you're helping him. He's the warrior you've been searching for. He found you without knowing it. Everything will happen, as it's meant to, don't worry. I joked. Sometimes your mystic stuff drives me crazy, but you're always right. Grandfather laughed and I told grandmother the good news. Grandmother said, I heard it all, you'll make me a great grandmother soon, and don't keep the kids too far from us, Roger. The conversation with Claw's grandparents went on as such things do. Claw and I were lovers and she admired my scars, calling them beautiful. She didn't care about my past. She wanted me as I was. We worked hard but always found time for each other, even in a war zone. 3 months into our relationship, we knew everything about each other. She loved my scars, kissing them tenderly. Sergeant Major J.Y. I Claw was the love of my life. Then everything changed early. One morning I was inside the depot when fire shot erupted. I rushed outside to see a chopper going down, likely shot by insurgents. There were over 100 attacking us. I saw Claw running toward the chopper, firing her .45. She reloaded and kept going straight into the chaos. I ran after her, shooting as many as I could. We were caught off guard during a vulnerable moment, but I only cared about Jin. I saw Claw fall after being hit by a bullet that knocked her down. I reached her within seconds. She was alive but hurt, her vest had slowed the bullet. I handed her one of my .45s and extra magazines, telling her, liquidate anything that comes over that BM. Even if you think it's me. I charged at the enemy, firing until I ran out of ammo. My only thought was saving Jin. Reinforcements were coming, but one enemy got close enough to shoot me. Fueled by anger, I kept going when I was out of ammo. I pulled my M9 and engaged him in hand-to-hand combat. He was carrying a dangerous device. I grabbed his right hand to prevent him from setting off the device. I hoped I could keep it from exploding, and I was lucky it didn't. The men from the helicopter got closer, but my enemy tried to escape. I knew this fight well, with my left hand gripping his right. I guided him to his end of life. I had to stop him to prevent harm to others. His eyes widened as he realized he was dying, but he was ready for it as he died. I lifted him with the knife still in his skull, and we fell near a trench. I released his body into the trench as an explosion rocked the area, causing me to lose consciousness. __. Where are the damn bees coming from? I shouted, trying to regain control. We're under attack from every side. FCE water. I need more ammo. I barked, catching a bandolier. Someone THRE Johnson Roberts here with me, suppressing fire on the left. I ordered Williams, stay put and fire at anything on the right. Hit the tree line. I gave quiet instructions. Johnson Roberts, blades, only no prisoners, be fast and silent. Bullets flew everywhere, like angry bees, and I heard Johnson joke with Roberts, laughing despite the chaos. Quit laughing, Johnson, or you'll get eliminated. I warned. The sound of Cobra firing filled the air. Cover your necks. That brass is hot. I shouted. Slicks, inbound, get ready to move. Wilson grabbed Johnson, yelling, don't die on me. Johnson, I'll find you in hell and kick your back. If you do, medic over here, help Johnson. I shouted as the battle raged. Hit the tree lines with a grenade launcher. Move toward the LZ. Drag anyone you can. No one gets left behind. I ordered, grabbing enemy AKS along the way to blend in. Watch the smoke, Charlie can see it. Just like the cobras. Can I warn during everyone stayed low, medic move it? I called again glancing at the wounded. I turned to Olyuk, be the last one out. I promise time to dance. I whispered calming her. I've got you, don't worry about the bees, reassuring her. I added your first battle and you didn't lose a single man. You'll have to learn to write those letters, but not today. Choppers roared overhead, dragonfly inbound, stay low. I said, as the battle continued. A voice called out, ow, did you guys get caught here? I murmured to myself, stay with me, light, as I glanced at the wounded. The chief is down, but not out. Turning to the medic, I warned, save the lieutenant or I'll put a bullet in you. The situation was chaotic, with fire shot, explosions and helicopters everywhere. I knelt by Ultai. Stay with me, come back. I want it all. I whispered, my voice shaky. Suddenly I wondered who said that. My mind was spinning. I woke up in a bright room, disoriented. Jen. Was there? Hi Jen? I said, I remember everything, snakes, hogs, bees. Did I do all this before? Yes, maybe you did. Did she? Replied with a smile. You're my brave warhorse. I noticed a ring on her finger. Are you married? How long have I been out? A little over a year. She said, and yes, I'm married to you. An officer entered. How are you feeling today? Better, I think, I replied. Have we done this before? Yes, the officer confirmed. You've been in and out for a year, but you're healed. Now I then heard babies crying. Jen picked up 2 infants, cradling them in her arms. How old? I asked. 3 months. She said, this is Roger Jun, and this is Edna, they're ours. I didn't think I could have kids anymore, but here we are, and I'm married to you forever. She handed me the babies and I felt nothing but love. Questions could wait. I just wanted to hold my family, Jen added. I did DNA tests for you. I don't need them. I said, I already know. I noticed a simple gold band on my hand. How did we get married? I wondered, but I didn't ask. It didn't matter. 6 months later we were at Zoe's house. The original 23 members were there, including her kids. The big screen flashed with news. Command Sergeant Major Roger Phil was to receive the Medal of Honor. The room went quiet. They can't mean our Roger Phil. John Sr. grumbled, annoyed that someone outshined him. Then a picture of me in uniform appeared, smiling, medals on my chest with Jen and our children. The announcer introduced retired General Hannigan and Admiral Wilson, saying they served with me in Vietnam. Vietnam, Zoe gasped. Roger was in Vietnam. The announcer asked the officers to share their stories about me, leaving the group in stunned silence. General Hannigan shared, I served with then Sergeant Phil during my time as a 2nd lieutenant in Vietnam. Phil was on his 2nd tour, an acting platoon sergeant, though he wasn't officially promoted to staff sergeant. Until a few days later, he always had a book with him, studying to become an accountant through Army classes. Things got rough quickly. Congress was cutting funding, so we had small platoon. Mine had 18 men and we were part of a long-range reconnaissance patrol LRP. We got ambushed deep in the jungle by the Nva, who were probably tipped off about our location. The firefight lasted over an hour. I was shot and Phil took command. He ordered one of our men to use the M79 grenade launcher, but it only made things worse. The Nva kept coming like a disturbed beehive. We ran low on ammo, and Phil went hand to hand with several enemies, liquidating 3 of them with his knife. His main goal was to get us out alive, and he was deadly with a blade. Despite being wounded, Phil kept going. His humor helped break the tension. Even in the middle of battle, we finally got support from A-37 jets, known as Dragonflies, and then Cobra's helicopters with min guns that can fire 8,000 rounds a minute. The firepower gave us enough time to evacuate by Huey helicopters or slicks. Phil helped get the men to safety, even grabbing enemy AK-47s to return fire and fend off the Nva. As we left, General Hannigan recalled Phil kept fighting until everyone else was on the helicopter. He was striking twice, but provided enough cover to slow the enemy. The Cobras couldn't help because the enemy was too close. Then Phil came for me, lifting me by my web gear, even though he was wounded too. I was bleeding out, barely able to hold on to him. Phil was only 5 and about 125 pounds, but he carried me to the slick. He made sure all the men were accounted for before tossing me on board, telling Meow, you can say you were the last man on the field. That was Phil, always putting his men first. I recommended him for the Medal of Honor, but he received the Silver Star. Instead, he saved all our lives. That day, I tried to thank him later, but he was back in the field. His wounds weren't serious enough to send him home. Not that he wanted to leave. Phil had the look, that distant, focused stare some men get when they're ready for battle. He never lost it, always in warrior mode. Now, 30 years later, I see it's gone when he looks at his wife and kids. It's good to see him. Finally, happy Zoe and her group sat in shocked silence watching the TV. The announcer turned to Admiral Wilson. Admiral, you also served with Sergeant Major Phil. What can you tell us? Admiral Wilson nodded. My experience with Phil was similar to the general's. I was leading a SEAL team that wasn't supposed to be there after 1971, but we were still around as advisors. Our area overlapped with Phil's patrols. We joked about him being an army puke and he'd returned the favor, but when things got tough, Phil always showed up. During one fight we were ambushed and flanked. Phil arrived and acted like an entire company was backing him up. His presence alone turned the tide, and he moved quickly to stop the flanking. His speed and aggression scared the enemy. They thought they were up against far more men. We were all shot up, bullets flying everywhere. Phil kept talking about the bees swarming. He had a way of making jokes during combat to keep everyone focused, though he was dead serious. His humor helped us get through the worst moments and stay alive, Admiral Wilson continued. It was similar to what the general said when the slicks arrived. Phil insisted that the medic prioritize helping others, making it clear he wanted them treated first. We were lucky to be near the 1st Cavalry, who came fully armed to help us out. Phil was shot up pretty badly, but still dragged me to the slick, putting his body between me and the enemy just like he did for the general. He made sure I was the last one off the field, knowing how important that is. For an officer, Phil told me he was tired and just wanted to go home, fall in love and live a boring life. He said he wanted to forget the army, Vietnam, and everything that had happened. A few months later, we crossed paths again at the Pentagon. I had recommended him for the Medal of Honor, but he received the Navy Cross. Instead, he didn't seem happy, even though it's just one step below the Medal of Honor. He only smiled for the photo after the ceremony. Phil quietly left the military before he left. I gave him my Navy SEAL badge. He didn't say much, just nodded and then disappeared later. I saw him at a bus stop by the Pentagon dressed in civilian clothes. I offered him a ride and he acted like we were strangers. I asked him where he was headed and he said he was going out west to college, but gave no details at the Greyhound station. I handed him a box full of his awards and decorations, but he acted like he didn't recognize it. He even claimed he'd never been in the military, saying he'd been in a coma after an accident. He shrugged and walked away with the box. It held his Navy Cross, silver stars, Purple Hearts, and more. Phil had told me he wanted to forget everything, and this was his way of doing it. That was the last time I saw him until now. Zoe's children sat in stunned silence. John Jun remembered. I saw that box once years ago. Dad said it wasn't important and took me to play catch. When I looked for it again, it was gone. John Jun went downstairs to look for the box. It didn't occur to him that he had said Dad. Instead of Roger, he returned with the box. Just as the president had finished presenting Roger with his second Medal of Honor, no one since Papy Boyington had been awarded the Medal of Honor twice. The first time, Papy received it. It was Polly, along with a Navy Cross. The second time, President Truman awarded it to him after he was found alive. Having spent 20 months in a Japanese P camp, everyone thought he was dead, so he received the first one as a deceased man. Papy always found it amusing. He had come back from the dead to receive it again. The president recounted how he was on an unscheduled secret visit to the troops in a helicopter, which was part of a larger public trip to a nearby country, when a lucky shot disabled the engine. The helicopter went down, and before his Marines and other helicopters could reach them, they came under attack. He and his advisors, along with Secret Service agents, ran toward a set of buildings. As the helicopter became the focal point of the attack, there was nothing to indicate it was the president's helicopter, but the attackers, seeing the Secret Service detail around him, suspected he was someone important. As we were running for cover, the president said, we saw Command Sergeant Major Phil charging the enemy initially all by himself. Then I noticed a wounded soldier, and Phil paused for a moment, gave that soldier something, and then sprinted toward the enemy. Phil's shots were deadly. Accurate. Almost everyone hitting its mark. This gave the other American soldiers time to regroup and launch their own attack. When Phil ran out of ammunition, he attacked a man with just a knife. Even from a distance, it was obvious. The man was a walking bomb based on the way his clothes moved and something strapped to his chest, without concern for his own safety and thinking only of others. Phil grabbed the detonator from the man's right hand with his left and liquidated him with the knife. He then carried the body to a trench where the explosion did minimal damage. The attackers tried to shoot Phil multiple times, hoping he would drop the body and trigger the bomb. Phil was hit several times but refused to stop until everyone was safe. The president went on, but that wasn't all Phil did when we finally reached him. He made a request. The soldier he had helped was now a sergeant major herself, but back then she was Corporal Claw. He asked to marry her before he died and requested that I reinstate him into the army, so she would receive survivor benefits. Fair is fair. He said I reinstated him as a command sergeant major and performed the quickest wedding ceremony in history. I asked you take twice, and after 2 yes responses, they were married by the President of the United States. No less. Now I see that, based on the maternity uniform Sergeant Major J.Y. Phil is wearing, we're expecting 2 more little Phils. That makes 4 men like Command Sergeant Major Phil answer the call when their country needs them and then return to normal life without mentioning their heroism. That's the backbone of America. We are proud to have him serve with us, and for us this time, we're not letting him go, we're keeping him in the army. He is home. The president looked at the crowd in the audience. Today are his wife's grandparents, one of whom many of you know, Master Sergeant Strong, bear himself a Medal of Honor recipient. Would you please stand so we can honor you, Master Sergeant Strong? Bear, the man Roger would come to think of as his father-in-law, stood and received the crowd's recognition. It had only been a month since Roger had rejoined the world when he and his wife, along with their children, traveled to Montana to meet her relatives on the reservation, while on medical leave. Roger and his wife participated in a traditional Blackfoot marriage ceremony. Just 4 months after giving birth, she became pregnant again. Their children were welcomed into the Blackfoot Nation. Jean Claw was proud of the pregnancy. She was a Blackfoot bride, a Blackfoot mother, and the wife of a warrior whose battle scars earned him the respect of her tribe. To her, every scar was a beautiful reminder of her husband's bravery and that her great stallion was hers forever. During this time, she had a conversation with Roger. Roger, my love. She said, I'm worried about being pregnant again. I can't stop making love to you, but I'm afraid that if we keep going, I'll keep getting pregnant. Maybe I should get fixed, so it doesn't happen again. Ironclaw laughed and replied, husband, would you have me married to a gelding instead of a stallion? We will not stop making love, and I will have as many children as the spirit allows. I have a warrior for a husband, and I want the world to see that he is a warrior at home, just like he is away. And that was the end of the conversation. They would have no more children after their second set of twins, another boy and girl. They too would become members of the Blackfoot Nation. This set would be born on the reservation, and Roger was there for their birth, cutting the cords and breathing life into them. Besides their mother, Roger was the first person they touched. Roger was a devoted father and husband for the next 10 years. The family traveled the world, as part of a military mission. Because of Roger's dedication to his country and his courage in combat, he and his wife were always stationed together. Though they had different roles, they both retired on the same day. Roger was never allowed back into a war zone. Despite his repeated efforts to be assigned there, the Department of Defense considered him a national treasure. Their children grew up on military bases worldwide, and when the time came, 2 of them went to West Point and 2 to Annapolis. All 4, through presidential appointment in the present, the president concluded Command Sergeant Major Phil. I'd like to point out that a sergeant major is a leader, not a commander. Sergeant major, your wife outranks you, so you better follow her orders. The audience laughed and applauded as the formal ceremony wrapped up with the president and first lady greeting many of the attendees. It was both a political event and a tribute to Command Sergeant Major Phil. While the mood was light, something more serious was happening elsewhere. John Jr. opened the box and found Roger's dog tags along with medals, ribbons, and several citations. They spread them out on a large table to inspect. Among them were the Navy Cross and the Silver Star, but they weren't the only ones. There were also multiple bronze stars with small V devices indicating they were awarded for valor in combat. There were Army, Navy, and even Air Force commendation medals, all with V devices attached. It wasn't unheard of for a service member to receive medals from different branches for acts performed in service to those branches. Although it was rare, several Purple Hearts were also in the collection. Normally receiving 3 would mean you had to leave the combat zone, but Roger had 6. Some were earned while working with Navy personnel, others during an Air Force-based defense. Because of this, they weren't all recorded in his official file. No one knew how many times he had truly been wounded. That explained as many scars, some from bullets, some from explosions, and others from hand-to-hand combat for reasons unknown. Roger often claimed they were from a car accident. Instead of telling the truth, perhaps he didn't fully remember, or maybe his dreams served as a way to relive the horrors of battle. We'll never know for sure. There was also a Good Conduct Medal, a combat infantryman's badge, and a gold badge featuring an Anchor Eagle trident and pistol, the Navy SEAL insignia. There were no orders accompanying this last badge, but it was clear that an admiral had given it to Roger on his final day. Additionally, there were several medals from the Republic of Vietnam, each accompanied by a citation and the paperwork that led to the recommendation for the award. The general and admiral had it wrong. The paperwork showed Roger had accomplished far more than they knew. Testimonials from other team members during his missions, including the Silver Star and Navy Cross operations, revealed just how much he had truly done. While the general and admiral had seen one side, his fellow soldiers saw much more. By now, everyone around the table was reading one of the documents or inspecting the medals. John Jr. glanced at Zoe and then at the overweight man who had been frequently with his young wife, asking, "This is the man you thought had better genes than Roger?" The last item in the box was, at the bottom, a sealed envelope addressed to my children. John Jr. opened it and read the letter aloud, written by a 20-year-old Roger to his future children. "My dear children, I hope I have children. I'm writing this on the eve of leaving the army. I've done things a civilized man shouldn't do, and just because it was war doesn't make it right. These were things I had to do, but they still hurt me inside. Being young doesn't make them right, but from now on I'll try to do what is right. It's never too late to try. I want to leave it all behind and do my best to forget, while atoning for it too. But before I do, I want to leave you with some words I hope to live by, and I hope they'll mean something to you. A person's value isn't found in a box or in words written on a piece of paper or in things to wear to show what you've done. It's in how you live your life every day. It's in how you treat your friends and even strangers, but, most importantly, how you treat your family. It's how you show them love and devotion by always putting them first, no matter the cost. The best part is they love you for being who you are, regardless of how much money you make or how smart you are. Because of that, every day you must do your best for them and they will do the same for you. That's the true measure of a person. I hope I've lived up to that for you. May God bless and keep you, and may He forgive me for what I've done in war. I hope He'll never need to forgive you, because you'll live a good, just and moral life as a good human being, a loving parent and a faithful spouse. Your loving father, Roger John, and his half-sisters were in tears by the time the letter was finished. I'm done here. Who's coming with me? Jan asked, as he carefully gathered all the papers and documents, placing them back in the box, exactly as they had been. His sister stood up and walked out with him. His wife stayed behind. 3 days later, a package arrived at the Pentagon addressed to Command Sergeant Major Phil. Inside the outer package was a brown box tied with twine. It was delivered unopened to Command Sergeant Major Phil. Inside were the original items and a short typed note found in an envelope beneath the twine, but not inside the box. This isn't meant for us. We wish it were, but it's not. The note wasn't signed, but Roger Phil knew exactly who had sent it. 4 months later, John was single and he, Paula and Billy had new names. We can do better, be better. This time we can be what Dad wanted, like. He showed us, John told his sisters as they slowly walked away together. Meanwhile, Roger reflected. It was a few months after I got my original awards back when I showed Strong Bear the letter. We were all sitting around the fire on a warm summer evening. There must have been 50 or more of us. It was a communal meal and everyone was there to enjoy the night. Jean Claw was there, as beautiful as ever, with our children. I loved calling her that. She was due soon and her pride in me was clear. As was her grandmother's pride in Strong Bear, my love for her was evident in her pregnancy and our children. I handed Strong Bear the letter I'd written as a young man to my future children. He read it, smiled, and passed it around. I was a bit shocked that such a personal letter was being shared without my permission, but I was even more surprised when it came back to him and he threw it into the fire. Words on paper mean nothing. You wrote that. Show your children, through your actions, show them by how you live your life. You already know that he was right. Of course, he was always right, as I'd come to learn, and for the next 30 years Jean Claw and I lived by those words. As for Zoe, in case you're wondering, she didn't live long after everything came to light. About a year later, someone sent her videos of her lovers talking about her, revealing what they really thought. They treated her as nothing more than an object for ZX, something to use and discard. They bragged about how they manipulated her into having children and then misused them. They had been using her and her children for years. The videos were also posted online and copies were sent to all her neighbors. Zoe took her own life. When she was found, she was holding a picture of herself, Roger, and the children at an amusement park. Everyone was smiling and laughing, looking happy. No one knows where she got the picture, who took it, or why she kept it, but it was buried with her. Only 2 people quietly followed the casket to the grave site. After the service, they were the only attendees. The guest book simply listed them as Gray Stallion and Iron Claw. A few weeks later, several videos surfaced online, showing the group involved in inappropriate behavior. These actions eventually became public, leading to serious consequences for everyone involved. The group had been filming for years and now the footage was public. Each video ended with the men mocking Zoe as their stupid strumpet, followed by an image of her body and the autopsy report, which confirmed her end of life as self-destruction by poison. The group disbanded. They were shunned in their own community, with many moving away, while others became reclusive for the rest of their lives. Somehow the videos seemed to follow them wherever they went. No one knows who posted them or sent them to their new neighbors, but the group's pursuit of selfish pleasure had destroyed many innocent lives. I'm going to turn this one over to you. What do you make of this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time mean the world to me. So, thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.